In our last session, we were talking about forgiveness and the power of forgiveness and confession in prayer. We're talking about praying Jesus' way, the way Jesus taught his disciples to pray. And he was the one that said, and forgive us our debts. He taught his disciples to pray that way. Forgive us our debts, or our sins, our transgressions, as we forgive those who have transgressed against us. So not only do we need to be forgiven, but Dave, we need to be able to forgive others. This is critically important. And I find that this one may be more difficult than the other one sometimes because when you've been hurt, and normally people are hurt by people that they love,
That's right.
by someone they care about deeply. Where do we get the power? Jesus told us to forgive others. So where do we get that power? How do we forgive? How do you forgive someone that's hurt you, that's slapped you, that's cursed you, that's thrown you in prison? How do you forgive them?
And it is going to be critical for us to understand that if we're to really be a people of prayer. Jesus seems to indicate pretty clearly that if we do not forgive others, our sins will not be forgiven. And that's serious. Suddenly we got to deal with our own sin because we've not been willing to deal with others. Once again, I would push this all back on Jesus. That the power to forgive comes from the one who, hanging on a Roman cross, looked at the people that put him there and said, Father, forgive them.
Wow.
That's astonishing.
Wow.
Arms stretched out in great agony. And he prays, Father, forgive them. Now, because Jesus has come to dwell in you, in me, in everyone who is his,
Right.
Jesus still has the ability to do what he did 2,000 years ago. We would all confess that. We'd all agree, wouldn't we? That Jesus, who hung on a cross and forgave those who put him there, can still do that today. Ultimately, then, it comes back to me coming to Jesus when I have been hurt, when people have done those things against me that they should not have done. We're not making excuses for them. We're simply saying, now, Jesus, would you do in me what you did 2,000 years
Yeah,
ago?
yeah.
Would you show me, Lord, how to forgive? Lord, would you forgive first of all through me to them, and then, Lord, continue to show me how to do that. And I believe that becomes a process. There are very few, if maybe no one, who just full-blown as a believer finds themselves easily able to forgive. And will say things like, well, I'll forgive them, but I won't forget.
Yeah.
And, things like that, which really means I'm not going to forgive
Yeah.
them. I'm going to hold on to this. It's going to become a big obstacle in my life. Ultimately, this comes back, though, to Jesus. It isn't just me being nice, or I'm just naturally forgiving, or those sort of things. None of that. It is one of the clearest indicators that we have been moving towards Jesus in prayer, and that he now has the freedom in us to do which is natural for him, but not natural for us.
Right.
It's not natural for a human to forgive another human who's really hurt him,
Yeah.
but it's natural for Jesus to do that.
Yeah. We're talking about this, and we've been it seems like there's a thread woven all the way through prayer, and that is the cross. Because it's, you
That's
just
right.
mentioned it right there, and we started off there at the cross. That's how we come into the presence of God. But it's from the cross that God's love flows, his grace flows. When we look to Jesus and we see him say, Father, forgive them, we know that one of them is me.
Yeah.
And so, another thing that's helped me a little bit, Dave, in this thing is that I realized that when Jesus prayed that prayer, he had done no wrong.
That's right.
I mean, he was perfect. He was absolute purity. He'd done no man wrong. And yet when they beat him, cursed him, spit upon him, ridiculed him, crucified him, he loved them.
That's right.
Now, here's the difference. I've done wrong. I've messed up. And like a friend of mine says, when someone criticizes you, just remember if they knew the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, that would be a lot worse than the criticism.
That's right.
Because we've all messed up, we've all failed.
Yeah.
So when people hurt us, yes, they may be totally wrong, but we still have our own problems and our own wrongs. And so, but Jesus wasn't like that. He was perfect. And so His grace is pure. And I think it's that grace that is, I don't think, I should go back on that. I know it's that grace that has enabled me to forgive those who have hurt me.
That's right.
And so speak to the word grace and how that plays, because the forgiveness we were talking about in the last session is grace.
That's right.
And in this session, we're talking about grace again. It takes grace to forgive others, God's grace.
And think about from this perspective, grace, a way to translate it is, of course, His gift. God gives us something that we did not earn, that we don't deserve. He simply gives it to us. Now, if I say to you, Sammy, here, I have something to give you, and after I give it to you, I want you to also give it to others. And you say, okay, I'll be glad to do that. But then I don't give you anything. You can't do anything with it because you've not been given that. But if I have given you this, you've got it in your hands, you can turn around and give that away. See, that's what grace is.
That's good.
Grace has been given us. It's a gift.
That's really good.
We didn't earn it. We couldn't work for it. We don't deserve it. It's God's, some use the term, an old theological term, God's unmerited favor. He just gives it to us because He wants to.
Right.
And we now have been charged by Jesus to say, I want you to turn around. I want you to give what I've given you to others. They didn't deserve it either. They're not going to come to you and say, oh, I'm so sorry. No, no, no. You simply give to them the way I gave to you. And so when we understand that forgiveness then to others is simply, it's not so much an emotional response, it's not even me feeling anything, it's me out of obedience saying, okay, Lord, I get this. You've forgiven me when I didn't deserve it. I'll just do this because you've already given me that. I'll take that and pass it along.
I want to share a story with you that last night I was with a friend of mine from Rwanda. He was there during the genocide, and I went in right after the genocide and preached a message of reconciliation to the nation. But when I was in Rwanda right after the genocide, I had lunch with the mayor of a town, and this man's best friend and neighbor, when the order was given for Tutsis to be killed, and he was a Tutsi, he had 7 children, and this friend came to him and said, there's no way you can hide all 7 children. Let me take half of them, let me take 4 of them, hide them, and you and your wife hide with the other 3. And he said, oh, thank you so much. They took them and then called for the militia to come and kill them. And when he told me that, my mouth dropped, and I said, what did you do? And he said, I forgave them. I said, whoa, wait a minute. I said, how could you do that? That's not natural. He said, no, it's not natural. It's supernatural. He said, only by the grace of God. But I drew from God's grace, and I was able to forgive those who've hurt me. And I think that sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the people we love the most.
That's right.
And that's why the hurt's so deep. But God's grace is sufficient. You can't do it yourself. You can't forgive that person. But I want to encourage you to do something. Go and find that place that we were talking about in a previous time, and just get alone with God and just go before Him and say, God, I need your grace. I need your grace in this moment. And you let Him pour His grace into you, and then you give it away. And just say, I forgive that person. And God will use you in prayer to bring a mighty revival, because that's where it begins, at the cross with God's grace. God bless you.